Okay, now I'm gonna make blah 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 blah. I'm making a few videos about structuring a project finance model, project finance modeling theory, and then incorporating elements into this technique that I have to reduce the pain points of project finance modeling. Now, one of the things I cannot seem to do very well is to make these damn diagrams and pictures in Excel. So whatever, what I'm going to have somebody help me with that. Maybe Hetty can help me with this and she'll make it beautiful and everything else. But so far in the last video, we said, okay, there's some development costs and maybe these development costs are not all reimbursable because the bank will say we don't allow your first class tickets to be included in a basis for financing. But you as the company, you say they're really going to be there. And not only that, we're going to capitalize those costs. And we're going to call that the depreciable costs for computing taxes. Now, if you really think about those development costs for that first class ticket, maybe you could deduct them currently. You can't. I don't think many places would let you get away with deducting them as an operating expense and also including them in capital. But okay, enough of that. What I'm going to talk now is about a development fee. And a development fee is paid by the sponsor, and notice what I've done. In the green arrows, I've done this all with money. No electricity moving around, no toll, traffic's moving around, no numbers of passengers, only money in these diagrams. So you can see where the money comes from and where it's going to and what the ultimate cost is. Now, this development fee would be paid by the sponsor and collected by the developer. And if the sponsor and the developer are the same, and eventually I'm going to put in who is the sponsor and all that stuff. And so the sponsor could be Enron, the developer could also be Enron. So essentially you're paying money to yourself. And the first things I always said is, okay, well, this is like making a check out yourself. And I babble on about this a lot. But the theory of this, when you really think about it, is much more interesting. And it gets down to the heart of the problems of trying to measure risks and returns in the development phase. I hope these birds aren't irritating you, but I'm going to leave them in the video. Measuring that with some sort of IRR, you just can't. Remember, I said over here, well, these development costs, when you're a developer, it's like trying to find a vaccine for this coronavirus. You got to test the monkeys, and you first have to do what do you have to do? A desk study. And then after you do a desk study, maybe the probability of that working is 50%. Okay, give it a high probability. And then you have to, after that, test the monkeys. Maybe that's 30%. Okay. And then you do your stage 1 test, and maybe that probability of getting it right is about 20%. And then by the time you get this, let's say that's 60%, not 60 with a percent sign. Okay? And then what you could do, basically, if you're, come on. If you're doing this from the first step, you could almost say, well, I'm going to multiply this by this, by this, by this, and that the probability, the final probability from desk, and I should have done this, but I did this backwards. This is the probability of success, okay, uh, uh, our development cost. In this case, we have a 5 times multiple because of the probability. And that's a little bit of a crude way of doing this stuff. And I guess I have to make it yet a tiny bit smaller to get everything on the page, or maybe 7. Who cares right now? Okay. All right. So the issue is, how do we put our development fee in here, and what happens if the bank doesn't allow a development fee? Should we then not put a development fee in our equity IRR, or should we leave it there? And I would always say, of course, if the bank doesn't allow it, it's only you're transferring it from one pocket to the other, it's not real. And I would say, okay, leave it out of the IRR, fine. If the bank is allowing it, I used to say, well, but essentially that development fee is like a higher, it's like you're getting a higher debt gearing for your project because you're not really spending the money. Okay? I was wrong. I was so goddamn wrong. And this vaccination and all this stuff for the coronavirus really makes you think about it. If you, the fact that you have to, how many vaccine developers are there and how many will be successful? The fact that you have all this chance of failure when you're doing evaluation. What you maybe an investor should do is buy a portfolio of all the stocks, and maybe one will be the winner. I don't know how it'll work. Maybe more than one will be, whatever. Let's just pretend one will be the winner, and then you can really see that this development cost that all these 5, 10, 15 companies spent, whatever you put in your portfolio, you're going to reduce the value of that, and the one winner is going to be what is going to generate the value, but the other ones had a negative value. So enough of the babbling. Now let's put this thing in there. Now you could also make some other arguments about the O&M contractor. I'm going to put an O&M fee. But the O&M contractor might be yourself, and you might pay profits to yourself. Should you include these profits in your equity IRR, or should you include or should you deduct these profits, because you would have to pay those somewhere else? And my argument is the best way is to show multiple different equity IRRs for all of these things, and not be kind of shy about saying, okay, when we're making an evaluation, what is it best to do? Pay our own O&M fee and take the risk, or not? And the final one is we have an EPC fee. Now, this is an odd one. Suppose you're managing the EPC company here and you charge a fee for this. Now, this is a really not quite a development cost, but we can compute the equity IRR with the fee on a cash basis or without the fee. Okay, I can't think of quite the same theory as with the development for the development as the EPC cost, EPC fee, but that's what we'll work on today. Okay, and let's go to I suppose we'll go to the financing inputs. And in the financing inputs, where did I put? I did not put yes, I put a development fee in the CapEx. I suppose I should leave it there. And let's do this silly thing. Let's just copy this here. And when you paste it here, you can see, well, that's a bad one to paste anyway, because it's not a percentage. You can see, this is I-27, J-27. So my friends in Denmark said, just be lazy, just put it into J-29, okay? And then just go, and you better change the format control and make it go from 0 to 100, and maybe this one will change it by 2. I don't know why, to whatever, okay? Because it's not going to anywhere. We better change it to 1 because it's not going to be anywhere near 100, right? Okay. And this will just give us kind of whole percentages and all of that. And the reason I'm doing that is, well, because I want to do it and I want to show the impact of the development fee on the IRR and whether it really should be. Now, when we do this development fee, we could also, oh God, why did I put 95? I meant to put 2%. Well, let's put 3%. We could also do a little bit of an analysis of what the development fee percentage is, and we can put a development fee multiple. And again, now what I'm going to do is make I'm I'm going to do this monkey testing business, pretending that monkey whatever, pretending, and we'll put a little bit of a diagram over here where we'll say, okay, what's our risk in stage 1 of doing a desk study and a feasibility, stage 2 getting the permits, stage 3 making a wind study, stage 4 getting our contracts in place with the government, step 5 getting our contracts in place with the PPA. It's not really so different, is it, than this whole vaccination business, okay? So we can put this in, and now we can press 5, and then perhaps we'll make a little switch, okay? And we'll put apply percentage, okay? And we'll make a little flag, okay? And now when we make a flag, first of all, I'll put true here. Now, when you put true and false here, I've got to tell you one little thing. Of course, a lot of this video is going to be about the it's going to be about the parallel model and all that. When you do that, Hetty's told me that you've got to really put 0 and 1 in for your flags if they're going to be an input into the other one. And now I just used to do this just kind of as a silly thing, but really putting these little check boxes next to these kind of inputs then I think they're kind of nice because we can put them in our little diagram. And this diagram, I should have really introduced this a little more, but the diagram you might think is complete BS. You might think is complete BS because you could have done everything in the regular old control page, right? Uh-oh. You could have done everything here. It's got the same information. Perhaps this is a better layout even. But, down here, then we can, uh-oh. Okay, I meant to copy our box. Actually, I did really want to copy this. So now, of course, you can put these in, and hopefully, for me, I can see where the money's coming, where it's going. I can start to make arguments to the bankers or maybe to the investors or maybe to the off-takers that this development fee is a really legitimate kind of thing to do. It's not just a little bit of a way to pump up the IRR. It's got totally legitimate value. Of course, if you have to buy it from a third party, it would be clear that if this developer and the thing weren't the same. So, and then maybe somebody's going to help me one day and say, you can somehow make this thing go sideways. Maybe you can. So we can now we want to change the development fee. Why it's not changing sucks, but let's see. Okay. I made a capital error. How could I have done this? How could I have done this? I didn't apply the Tatiana method. Oh my God. She's so long out of project finance modeling, it's probably ridiculous. And where was my development fee percentage? Oh my gosh, I didn't go from one sheet to the other. Okay, and by the way, I better do this. So I purposely made a horrible error here, and just in case we ever copy it again, I better fix that. Okay, all right, enough of that. So let's now start applying this in our model, and then we're going to apply it in our can I get some in our parallel model. Now up here, where we said percent of development, I should put development cost. And so what if it's a little bit of a long title? I hope, you know, as I'm reviewing other people's models, I wish they would have told me what this stuff is, all their abbreviations, all this stuff. SPOC stands for Special Principle something. Oh God, whatever it is. It took me so long to try to figure this out. And now we could I'm gonna leave our development fee in, even if the bank doesn't allow it. That might sound like something that nobody would ever do. Yeah, if the bank doesn't allow it, you're paying it to yourself. It's not going to affect your cash flow at all. Why would you do it? And my argument again is that it's a very real cost. Remember the vaccination and Moderna and the Oxford study and the Chinese studies and all of that stuff. I should know much more about who's doing what. Okay, and then so we can put percent of development fee reimbursable. Okay, and let's put that as a percentage. And this time, I'm not going to waste your time. Okay, I hope I left off at the right place. So we've got our of de percent of development fee that's reimbursable, and also this EPC fee that's theoretically now seen it. The sponsors can charge the EPC company for managing or something like that. Okay, we'd have to make a new theory for that one. And the key thing here is that, all right, we have our operational model now. In our operational model, we have to be a little bit careful. The development, if we put in this development fee and made it a percentage of the development cost, we'd get a little bit of a circular reference. And now every time I have ever thought about and done this, I have said, well, this cost that you are just charging to yourself, that you're paying as a green button here and getting as a green arrow here and getting as a red arrow here, that should not be part of the project IRR. Now, you could make, based on what I think right here, and this is going to have a big, I'm going to make a little decision tree thing kind of out here. You could make a very good argument that that development fee should be in the project IRR. I'm going to leave it out for now. I'm going to leave it out. I'm going to otherwise go crazy, and that might confuse people. But once we get to the financing items, we need to get our development fee. And again, when we get up to this kind of table, and what I have done here I do not think I do have this generic macros here open. When I press this generic macro business, in reality, you could even have this as a separate sheet, I suppose. And I put the whole debt sizing calculations. Every time you get a little A little thing at the beginning right there. Every time you get one of those things, and now, oh no, just 1 minute. Okay, sorry for the delay. My computer ran out of some kind of memory. I've had this problem, and my Zoom calls all blow up on me and all that crap. I gotta do something about this. All right, so I hope once you see this, and maybe these words aren't exactly correct. Maybe somebody's going to tell me fix the words. You can see how much is really spent, and I'm going to call this development fee an amount that's really spent. Now, this development fee is going to be a little bit interesting because if it's a percentage, if it's a multiple of the development cost, that's no big deal. That's going to be perhaps a little bit too much. I'm going to have to reduce the development cost a little bit. If the development fee is a percentage of this total cost, well, this total cost includes IDC fees, commitment fees, and the higher the development cost, then this goes higher, and if this goes higher, we multiply by 80%, this goes higher, and then we have our circular reference. It's almost like a square circular reference. So that's why we're going to have to put it into our other file. Of course, we can also put a fixed development fee here and solve that as well. This is not a really big deal. You could almost do this algebraically if you took all the cost except the development fee and divided that by 1 minus the development fee times 1 minus the development fee, blah, blah, blah. You can get that. But let's do it with our UDF method or whatever I'm calling it today. Now, I closed the debt sizing, so we're just looking at this debt funding. And my wonderful method for finding the sums and putting these little lines into seems to be inconsistent for me, and perhaps I'm going to have to redo it. All right, I'm going to do it. Okay, I hope that fixed things a little bit. Now in our sum column. Shit. Okay, I have to make another change in my generic macros. I have to somehow work on this little making borders on the sum column. But this funding, so let's work through what we're going to do after that horrible little whatever it was. Okay, I'm going to take away the debt sizing. I don't want to see the debt sizing. That's a subject for another video, and hopefully it's going to be an easy one. Okay, and up here we've got development cost and EPC cost. These are items. This should be items that can be partially in the borrowing base. Okay, now why anybody watch this kind of video is a little beyond me. We're going to get to the UDF thing fairly quickly here, but that's going to be hopefully by far the easiest part. And now we're going to put a development fee, and then we'll put total. And this development fee may be, let's put development fee from percent, and we'll put development fee from from multiple. Okay, and once and then we'll put development fee apply. And this will just, we're going to use our drivers. And of course, I hope you remember, I go through this again and again. Oh, please don't put it upstairs. Please put it next to where you're going to do it. I know you won't. Why do I even bother to say these things. This is our this is our percentage, and this is our multiple, and this is our little true and false. Okay, and basically now we can even start this. Since this is circular, we cannot do what we did with the development cost and just kind of put the total reimbursable amount in. We're going to have to put in this flag and the development percent and all this. And now this is my big point. You get a template. You get a template given to you. It's got everything in it. It's got all this crap in it. But you want to make it a little fancier. In this case, we had Hetty wanted a development profile in, but I'm going to put up here development fee percent. And this now, I have to be a little careful with this. We probably could change this variable to a percent, and I will do that. I will do that. But this one is used in the model, so we got to be careful with this one. And this development fee percent will come from here. And perhaps I didn't make it clear enough because I'm a little nervous. But that development fee, notice it's a percentage of the coût de la total de la project, but not just the non-financing cost. That's how we define it. And then we put development fee multiple. And we can define these however we want. And I suggest you use the underscores. My friend Mike says, no, no, no. I wonder if Mike's going to watch this. And Mike corrected me on making the proof with the spinner boxes too. And he's helped me a lot, actually. And then development fee multiple. Okay. And then we can put a development fee flag. Okay. And this, we have to be careful. Now these are all input C's, okay? And the reason I'm doing this, you might think I'm the most unstructured piece of shit ever, and that's true. That's totally true. That's totally true. But I'm trying to get to the kind of one of the main points of this video, which is to show you the to show you how to apply all of this in a parallel method as well as the other one. Now, that last one we had to put as a 1 or a 0. So I had to take that that true and false and multiply it by 1. And the final thing is we can put reimbursable development. How did we do it? Before development reimbursable? So DV fee, and then we can put percentage of development fee. Okay. Now here, let me just tell you this. You might be saying, here's what I'm just trying to imagine all the wonderful arguments that you could make against this, and there are many, I am absolutely sure. And I am not expecting anybody to really start applying this. But I am, number one, I hope the video is about the theory of development fees, which are kind of an interesting and extremely important subject that might not look quite so important to the banks and everything else. Okay. If you get this, I put this stuff in here. We can leave this stuff in here. We can leave it in the program. It's not going to slow the program down, that's for sure. You can even delete this. You can move it to the bottom and say stuff that's not used. Once you have a template program here, you only have to change one or two things. And I haven't been making that clear enough. Times the development. So we can put all our little comments in here, and the idea is going to be very flexible. And the idea down here, whoops, I don't have a really detailed sheet. Then we put this sheet in, and we get the whole thing to print out. Okay. Hetty did all this. I got to give her all the credit for this one. Now, because she just said the other one. She was very polite. She said, that other one where you really did suck. I can't do this. How in the hell are you supposed to? She'd never say it. How are you supposed to actually make this work in the real world? And that's what we're really trying to do, to show you it can really work. And I'm doing two things kind of at the same time. So now we can take this, and the first thing we better do is put our total project cost. Now, you could say, let's define this in different ways. I'm going to define it up here. Now, I'm getting a queasy feeling for the circularity created by this. This total project cost has about everything in it. And then let's just copy this over to here. Okay, now the other thing we did is we said, well, this development fee, I'm going to make it just at the financial close date. So I'm going to kind of cheat and just put the bankers are starting to get fancy and saying, oh, maybe it's not at the financial close date. For me, that makes almost no sense whatsoever. But we'll take this because that's when you'd sell the project. That's why I say it makes no sense. So we'll take this and multiply it by this. Now in the parallel model, well, this better be 1, okay? In the parallel model, we have the financial close date defined, okay? God, if I don't stop doing that, I'm gonna kill it. Okay, and then we can say that the development cost is a multiple. Well, we better at this total cost. We better define that. So I'm going to, I suppose I'll do the same thing, which is kind of lazy. It's really bad form, isn't it? I'm going to have to do this equal to this one. How bad is this? Oh, well, times the total development cost times this one. Now, once you've done it here, I hope I did it. Of course, I made a mistake. And I've got to move one of these over here. Okay. And this, I'm going to multiply it. I'm going to take this flag and multiply it by the total cost and then multiply it by our development fee percent. Okay, and we can kind of look and see, all right, which gave me the, if I do this again, this is what an idiot I am, okay? This is how much we got from the two different methods. Now, just 1 second, just 1 minute. I changed some assumptions. I changed an assumption on the development cost. I made the development cost only 100,000, and I gave us 3 times that development cost back to our 300,000 if we have 7%, which seems to be a pretty high amount still of that equates to 7% of the cost. That's okay. I'm just having you think about things, and then this development fee applied. I have no idea which way we did it. Do you remember? And this says apply the percentage. So whenever I have a true false, I don't know why. It seems to be that it's good to throw these things in. So this will be, of course, if it's true, then we take the development fee, otherwise we take this one, okay? If I don't stop doing this, I'm gonna really explode. Okay, now we have that development fee applied, but then we're not even finished. Because then we need to put how much of the development fee, and then I'm going to put equity only. And then we'll put development fee that's part of the borrowing base. And I'm gonna call this debt and equity borrowing base up here. And then for this one too. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm going slowly through this. And then we work through all of our items. And we have the development cost, and we better put the development fee. Now this time, this development fee, just like the reimbursable one from last time, this is going to be the amount from the borrowing base. And of course, the driver of this stuff up here is going to be how much of the development fee here is, and let me get that in here properly. How much of this development fee, I thought we had done this and then I had my little problem. How much of this development fee is reimbursable? This word we used, reimbursable, and I'm going to have to put the little spinner boxes back, okay? Now, once we have worked through all of that one, this number up here is going to tie up to this one up here. We're going to get this development fee. Now, this development fee up here, I'm afraid to put it in right now because it's going to be all circular, but the development fee up here, this development fee will be from one of the fixed or calculated. The calculated development fee we can just take from the sum right here, okay? But that might be all different for different kind of things. And then we go through, and then we have our circular reference. Let's just put a little title here, circular reference. This is in the funding. And that becomes really a problem when you have to copy this whole line item because of the DSRA. And then we put upfront equity funding for the borrowing base. Okay, and that's where we start. We can put from financial close. Okay, and then we put this one. We see how much is remaining, and then we put upfront equity funding, which uses the minimum function. Okay, and then after that, we work through our pro rata, and to get the pro rata, we needed to put all of these items in. And remember, these right now, I'm doing everything pro rata, and these come from an analysis of the sources and uses, but it's on the column for the borrowing base. Okay. All right. I think this funding business is painful. And I think this funding business is a little bit difficult to think about. And then you have total debt issued. That's totally fine, so that we allocate the total amount of funding requirements here between debt and equity. And I hope that this is just the remaining. This is just what's remaining. And I think it would have been nice to have perhaps a little bit of an underline Shift Control E here. And remember this is the total funding, so we can see how much comes from our upfront equity and how much comes from our, and how much is left over here. I'll leave that. Okay, and then finally we needed this upfront equity balance, and this was a little bit misplaced. So let's put this here. Shift Control plus to move it around quickly. Okay, we needed a balance, and then we can get our total debt issued. Now, after we put our debt issues, we put equity issued from the financed from borrowing base analysis. Okay, and then we have the equity that was financed by the non-borrowing base items. And remember, this was the total amount of the development cost we have, the total amount of the development cost, and we had to fund this with pure equity. And now the question is, and I'm going to distinguish this and put cash items. And that we can put another one in, and the reason to put another one in is because we might want to call the development fee, pretend it's cash. Well, it's not cash, or whether it's cash or not, we pay it into one pocket, then it's cash, and take it out of the other pocket, then it's not cash, vice versa. Take it out of one, pay it in the other. So let's put total equity finance from development fees and EPC fee. Okay, and finally, then we'll have the total equity financing, including development fees and EPC fee. And then we'll have let's put another one as total equity financing, excluding development fee and EPC fee. Now this was because that's going to be the real cash. Now, when you show this IRR, you can show the IRR, and that's going to be this cash on cash IRR. That's not going to subtract. In that case, we're not going to subtract and pretend the development cost is real. But if you're pure, and if you think about Moderna and this vaccination issues, and if you think about probabilities, you can make a very good argument that even for your own equity IRR purposes, you should take out that development fee and you can leave the EPC fee and do it the same thing. So that's the idea. And then when you finally go to the very end and you finally start computing your equity cash flow, I've got to put another thing here. Okay. We could compute one equity cash flow with the development fee and one without it. Enough of that. Now I'm going to come back and do this. But before I do that, let's apply this and look at how we would apply the same sort of thing in the parallel model. The first thing we need to do is we just need to change a couple of things. How am I doing? Okay. Let's put this development fee and call this development fee percent. Now, what that means is we take this model, this whatever it is, and notice how I've got the colors a little better, and we do, this is like your Alt MD for finding the whatever, the precedent. And I think that's what we called it. Okay, and let's, of course, oops, let's find the next one. And here. And look what I did. I actually did this here correctly because this I call the development fee percent. And I'm going to be a little more consistent, and I'm going to make this development DEVP fee percent. So what we need to do is put, and just because foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of a petty mind, but this, I'm going to take this development fee percent and replace it with, and the reason I'm going to do that is then we can always, if we see a variable over here and we want to change it, and I just put PCT. Okay, maybe that whole thing was a little bit, it was a little bit stupid to do, but whatever. Okay, now let's go. Now let's do the real thing. What I hope you're saying, oh, this is almost like a new kind of way to think about and do Excel. We're going to read these variables in. We're going to do just a little bit of arithmetic on these variables, and then we're going to write these variables out. So one way to read the variables in is just to take them here and copy them. Control C. And when we have to put them in, Hetty did something really good. She said steps to add variables. Step one, add a line, and whether it's a thing, but go to the assign variables, put it in a public variable. I think maybe that's what I'm going to do. And then put it in an output variable. Okay. This is unrelated to it. Okay. And then we have to do some arithmetic with that variable. Really, that's the way we should do this. Now these are going to be input C variables. So I'm just going to copy them here and put them as the public, which we don't really have to do, but Mike said we could call them just a regular old DIM, but I'm going to put as double. All the double does is it makes it really precise. Of one single time in my life, whether it was single or double, it made a difference once. Now we'll take all of these three variables which we've defined, and then we'll just put them into our reading. We'll go to the reading section. And in the reading section, we decide, are these input C variables or S? They're C variables. So we just put them up here. Okay, and maybe I'll take the last one we did and copy it. And we just need to put this in, and this time, based on that little analysis I just showed you before, this is what is read in from the sheet. And this is the variable that's defined inside the program. And did it a little bit wrong. Okay, let's do that again. We've got this one finished. And then let's take the development fee flag and do the same thing. That's 1 or 0. So let's replace this one and replace this one. I hope I'm okay so far. And finally, let's do the third one. Okay. And the third one, we're going to put this reimbursable business. Okay. And I hope you're saying, okay, this wasn't so hard, really. Okay. And maybe all this stuff is there anyway. And then you can put this, of course, wherever you'd like. And I think it to be kind of clear, this should be up here just underneath here. Okay, so we have kind of all our development fee percents, our multiplier, our flag, and our reimbursable. Now, that's the reading part. So we've got reading done. We're in children, we had to have a class in reading, and now we're going to skip writing and go to arithmetic and come back to the writing later on, because really it should be reading, arithmetic, and then writing out the arithmetic and other things. Okay, whatever. And now let's go down and start finding where we did our development fees. And we should have kind of put a little bit of a comment here. These little things with the blue things. Now I'm doing the Excel and the and I'm doing this, and I hope you see that in this case we had development fee is the amount could be this. Now what we can do up here is just like we do in Excel. We just put an if statement, but the way you write it is a tiny little bit different. If development fee flag, and you don't have to put equals 1. 1 is true, and then you put then. And then we're going to compute the development fee. We're going to compute the development fee just like this. And then we put a else. And then we put development fee amount. And this amount, now this is a little bit tricky. The amount, this is something that's copied across the sheet. Remember, we copied zeros or ones and all that. And then we have, this is the development fee multiple up here. Okay. And excuse me, the development fee multiple times the development expenditures. And if we just go down here, okay, just 1 minute. Okay, I had to find the development expenditures. Now, what you can do here, the other things you can do, this is so much like, you can put a worksheet function and put the sum. And you have to, it's a little tiny bit confusing, because when you put the sum, you don't put this little thing called an index for an array. I don't even know what the right name for that really is. You can put up here total development expenditure. Now, I could have defined this in this public variable and all that, but I don't have to. It's kind of VBA like this thing said, like this man said up here, he said Excel is outdated. Everyone knows how to use Excel. Mom and dad do it. Well, my mom and dad. My dad just left us. We all do reports and graphs. In fact, we use Excel for most anything. When Redmond's company released Microsoft Excel, I guess Redmond was Microsoft, I hope back then. But basically, they stole Excel from Lotus, so we shouldn't really say that. And it became popular. I remember when people were switching from Lotus to Excel and getting into that debate. Everybody works with Excel, and nobody really does it. It's like you're using, only a tiny part of your brain. Blah blah blah. I've heard people say, and then people say, oh, there's a big debate between Python and Excel. Now I'm going to tell you the truth. This is somebody named Boris, who I've never met. He's really obviously a very good philosopher about Excel. There's a programming language in Excel called VBA. Okay, it's more or less reserved for insiders, but honestly, it's the simplest programming language I know. Is he out of date? No, is it out of date? A little translation. And you can use VM, data manipulation, DAX. Oh God, I should know this. There's a little video which shows you how you can do all this stuff with Excel, and how you can make paintings with Excel. And then he says, well, okay, you can use all this stuff, but there's enough room in Excel for all this data. Where does he say that that's how much data you have in Excel? 191, blah, 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 blah. Okay, enough of that. So if you use VBA together with the Excel, you can do all this stuff. And this is my little way of saying it. And what you do here is you just put a worksheet sum function, so you can just grab all the stuff from Excel. And then we say the development fee is this development multiple multiplied by the total development expenditure. Okay, and then we're almost finished. Okay, and then we put the end if here. Okay, was that really that hard? Was that different? That's what my friend Boris, who's I'll never meet, maybe I'll meet one day. That's what he said, and it's kind of nice. Now, before what we did was we only allowed the reimbursable amounts. Now, what I'm going to have to do is call this base funding for the. I'll leave it. This is kind of borrowing base funding. Maybe I'll do a change here, and then no. This is total funding needs. Total borrowing base funding needs. And what we did last time is we added the development. And we added this time the development fee. Last time we put the development reimbursable. And what we're going to have to do now is a final little thing is I'm gonna compute it up here, and we're gonna put development fee reimbursable. I'm checking my spelling, and then development fee reimbursable. We're gonna put this into an array. So this, just a minute, I'm going to change something. Okay, I'm changing, every time it says development reimbursable, the thing we read in, I'm putting it as a percent. I don't care if it's a little long, and I spelled it wrong. Reimbursable. Okay, I hope I've got the spelling right. Okay, did it. And then now we can put, okay, I know these aren't done yet. Okay. And now we can make a new variable. So this is a little tiny more complicated than last time. And this is a variable, when you think about this, this is going to go across the columns. This is when you're going to copy from, it's not going to be a single constant variable, but it's going to be across the columns. And I put that up here. And up here, I'm going to this time make a new one called development fee reimbursable, and put this 1,000 in. That's just to say we could put it into a limit of 1,000 columns if you want to think about it like that. And now I'm going to put that into my arithmetic. Okay, that's just like inserting a line. Just think about this as inserting a line and putting it into the arithmetic. And then we have to put this one, and we're going around something called a period. That's like going around the columns, and we're going to say the development fee reimbursable is equal to the development fee reimbursable percent. And we take that and multiply that by the development fee amount. And that's like multiplying it by in a column, like kind of what we just did in Excel. And finally, once we have that development reimbursable, then we're going to put that into our borrowing base. Okay, and that's just right down here. And this time, why don't I put it here? Okay, and maybe I'm gonna put a little thing here. I'm just trying to make it not so long. And then we're going to take this development fee amount out because we might have an amount that's reimbursable and not reimbursable, and that's our total funding needs for borrowing base. Okay, and then we go down here and we go to the writing. Yes, we did the arithmetic, and then we go to the writing. And in our writing, what we want to do is we want to put something like this into our report, and we want to make it all very flexible. Now, what I did is I put some circular reference outputs that we need for at the top of our financial model. Okay, remember, you don't have to ever, you might never ever have to do this. All you might have to do, which is I'm going to do in another case, all you might have to do is simply copy the template into your file, and maybe it's got everything there for you already, and you just have to go around and find all the inputs here, and there'll be another video where I do all of that. But I think we're going to need to put the development fee as an output here because we're going to need that, and then we're going to yes, and then we're going to put the development fee down here. We've got reimbursable development costs. Let's put the development fee down here. Now, the only thing is this kind of messes up my little underlines. And under this development expenditure, I don't know why I underlined that. I'm going to put development fee incurred. Or I know, theoretical, I'm going to make up a new name. True development fee, that's our true cost. When we analyze probabilities and all that, it's a mythical number. It's not paid, but I'm going to put our development cost, development fee, whatever. What did I say? Okay, development fee from probability. How's that? And let's make up a new word like all these finance people do. So we go up here and we put somewhere down here, and we put the reimbursable development cost, and just right above, right below it, Okay, right here, we're going to put our development fee reimbursable, and I can't remember what I called it. That's like going to the blue lines back and forth, and everything here is really analogous to the Excel. And I have to now find where we did the development fee. Uh, okay, development fee. Maybe this is too many. Maybe we just need this one. Okay, and then we put this development fee reimbursable so I can find it now. And then I'm going to have to go back. I'll copy this one. And then we're just going to stick this into our report. Okay, and after we stick this into our report, uh, uh, come on. Oh, I already put it in that. Just a minute. Oh, come on. Uh, these are circular reference outputs. Excuse me. This is our development flag, construction flag, development expenditure, and let's just put it up here. It kind of won't like that at first, and then we make it go onto another row. That's what this row number thing does. And all we do is we take this number and we move it and we put it over here. Now this, you might be saying, oh, this took a long time and all of that. But I'm just trying to demonstrate that if eventually, if you apply this method, you can easily make the changes. You can make the changes and you can uh, development fee probability. The development fee reimbursable. Okay, and actually I was kind of wrong. I was a little bit inconsistent. That goes into our uses of funds here, and that's really what I should have put here. Excuse me. And this uses of funds for borrowing base. Now it's correct. So it says development fee reimbursable, and this is development fee from probability theory. And this one is we just put development fee amount. I have to, I think I have it up here already. Just a minute. Okay, this is the beginning of the report. It shows how many iterations we have to do. It shows what the, and yes, it's the development fee amount. We can even repeat that here. All right. And so I'm just replacing this reimbursable with this one. That's just like, it's not exactly, but very, very close to what we had in our other report. Okay, now let's show you how it worked. Now this, if I apply the multiple, remember I'm multiplying the 3 times the development fee multiple to get our 300,000. And then if I go now to my output, we put, first of all, let's kind of look at what we did. Now, I think I need to get rid of all of our little things. Now, maybe for some reason, I don't want to show some of this crap just for a minute. And I should have got rid of both of them. But so we have a development period, and then we have a construction period. All mimics all the Excel. And then we have a development expenditure. And then, just a minute. Okay, Let's try again. I put that off. So our development fee is 300,000. And that's exactly what we get in our model. And now what I did is I also put right next door in this little reportage, this little reporting thing, you can put the drivers of the model. So well, I put the development fee and the thing just like I do in the other sheets. And I suppose if you were like these this crazy, ridiculous bureaucratic crap, you could put it above or something like that. And then you can get your total funding needs and verify that it all works and put them all together. Now, what I'm going to do is do that without making the video. I just want to re-emphasize, don't think you ever have to do this. Basically, what trying to do, what I'm trying to do with Hetty is get all of these things into a template. But at the end of the day, maybe you're going to have to adjust a little thing here and there, maybe a little thing here and there. And I just want to show you to not be afraid of this and really show you that when we get this really well done, you just plop it in your sheet, attach a few of the variables to the inputs like this. You got to go down, and that takes about 5 or 10 minutes, maybe more, maybe less. Me, it would take a little bit more. You put all of this stuff in, uh, uh, and then you can just attach everything. And if there's something that's new and a little bit different and that you don't understand, that's not in the output, and if you have a little bit of a different format, you can adjust it all by yourself. And if you can get your boss to say, we should really do this, we should really start being a little more modern with our VBA and all of this, what we'll do is we'll give you customized classes just for your company. That's our big business idea. That's why we're giving this stuff out, because we want you to eventually apply it to your real models. We'll come and we'll work on your models for a minute or two, get this into the model, show you how to do it with a few of your models, get you comfortable with it, comfortable with making changes. And then you can really solve the pain points of project finance. Okay, so this is the end of hopefully the end of this development fee mechanics, really, a video. There's the accompanying video on development fee theory. And where we have I switched the UDF output a little bit, and I show how much our development expenditure is, and you notice I put this development fee, and I say, well, it could be a multiple or it could be a percent, and then we put our development fee in here, and we can make absolutely sure it exactly matches the development, the normal, whatever, the non-parallel model. And I put the cost here, so in case you want to test this by multiplying this by the cost, you could get the answer. And then down here we show the amount of the fee that's reimbursable, and we show the reimbursable amount, and we finally get to the total amount of borrowing-based funding, which is different than the total project cost because some of it's not reimbursable. All right, that's that. And then if everything works, okay, and if you're going to have to add items, it's not going to maybe work the first time. So we have a UDF column. We have a fixed column with all of our little range names. I'm looking up here for the range names. And now we can either apply the copy and paste method as normal, and if I let's change the development fee a little bit, okay? So if we go up here and we want to play around with our development fee and push it up or down, okay, then what we would have to do is if we have it on the copy and paste method, we have to somewhere resolve this circular reference. It's still going fairly quickly, a little bit more slowly. Okay, and then we can make sure everything's nice and balanced. This is this key of showing them together. Okay, and if we use the parallel model instead, we can start playing around with our development fee. Now, the other video I made, which frankly I think is more important, is this video, see how it kind of works, is this video on the theory of the development fee, whether it's a real cost or not. And I think if you're a developer, you argue it's a real cost. And when we compute our cash equity IRR, the real return, the real performance measure, this is the ultimate thing that you're computing with a stupid model. The question is, should you deduct that development fee or should you leave it in? And I'm saying it's a real economic cost. So I think we should compute an equity IRR, a cash equity IRR, and an equity IRR with a development fee. So IRR with economic, I'm going to put a long thing, econ cost for development fee. And we could do the same thing with economic cost for development and EPC fee. We sit there and we better make a very serious argument that these costs are very real now. I guess this got a little bit long, and I don't care right now because we really have to try to explain it. Oh my gosh, well that's a little, no. Okay, what we have to do here is let's just fix this stupid thing and put a little, right up here, we've got, up here we better put a CHAR 10. Okay, there we go. All right, and we better, uh, where are our numbers? Our numbers are here. Our numbers are in AC23. So we better put our number here. And the number here, I'm going to explain where this comes from just a minute. Okay, so at the very bottom, I compute two IRRs, and let's trace back where these come from. I'm saying that development fee was a real cost, and I'm going to do the same thing here for now. Okay. And we should argue, and we should argue very seriously that that real return we're getting is not the 20%, which is the cash on cash return, but it's really the 13% return. And in the accompanying video, which is much, much more important, I'm repeating that again, I show you theoretically what that development fee should be, and it's dependent on the probability of success, which is tricky to compute because there are real options associated with computing this development fee. It's a much more interesting valuation, really, than the rest of it. There are real options, and I use a Monte Carlo approach to demonstrate the value of the real options. We need the probability that we're going to succeed, and we need the cost when we don't succeed. And this cost when we don't succeed depends on whether we get out of stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 3. And this horrible coronavirus thing is making me think about all this stuff. So here's another one, Novex or something. You can see they went through stages. Look at that. They went through stages, and then their stock price goes up after they go through these gates or stages, and our development fee percent or our development fee multiple better include all of that. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a couple of mechanics, and then we'll be finished. So if I want to, I'm going to say, oh, if the bank allows us the development fee or doesn't allow us the development fee, I don't really care. I couldn't care less. Notice that now the fixed one is not applying. We'd have to rerun that. And I can look at my, perhaps I better put my equity IRRs up here. Do I have two spaces? How about cash? Let me put it up here. Cash IRR, and let's get the cash on cash one, which this one recognizes that you pay the development fee to yourself, so it gives you a much higher IRR. And then we have Econ IRR. I'll call it that way just for a minute. And this one says, oops, and I took the wrong one. This one says, no, 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 no. We really pay the development fee. So when you're laying this out, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but not really too much. Let's go down and look at the last part of the sources and uses. So this is we have the amount of funding we get from total the funding needs. That's for our borrowing base. That's not the total real funding necessarily. The real funding up here was 4.8 million, and the amount you get, the lenders allow you to have, because they're not giving you the full value of the development fee, might be less. Okay, and what I'm arguing that when you do this, I just wanted to change it to demonstrate kind of how it works. When you do this, we compute the total equity that we get after the financial close first. Now, before the financial close, you actually have to pay for all your development costs, so you better put that as a additional equity funding. So I think you really need two equity funding lines. One equity financing is after the financial close, and another one is before that. And just to review, this one, we got reimbursed for our development costs. And if you remember, what we could say is, okay, they're not gonna allow us to get our business class seats in our airplane. They're gonna make us squish into these economy seats, and we're gonna recompute the financing with a lower base. Okay, and then we're not finished. Sorry about kind of going up and down and being a little confusing here. Okay, so in this case, the amount of our reimbursement for our development fee from the bank changes. That's not the real cost. We still have to actually spend this money. We just get less from the debt. This is just a financing gain. Now, the next one I computed a second line, and this is so far. Oh God, I'm kind of making things a little too confusing. Excuse me, let me put the sum here. Okay, this is we finance the equity, and then we also finance here. I have some additional financing that we could have for our EPC fees if those are not allowed. And then I have another thing. And this says, okay, so far we're pretending up here, we're pretending that the development fee here, this development fee is a very real cost. And just 1 second, I realize I did something slightly. Now this line, let me press Control and the square bracket. This one, I put how much is our total development fee here, and how much comes from the bank. This total development fee, you should slam your fist on the table and say, this is the economic cost of development. That's the other video. That comes from probability real option analysis, the cost of failed projects. It's a very real cost. the bank's going to finance 75% of this over here. And the rest of it's going to come from equity. So we can compute an equity IRR where we see we have to fund this equity. We're pretending it's a real cost. And then we add these. So the amount we actually fund in the first period is we pay for the development fee. You can say it's not really paid for. You get it back. The development cost, you get reimbursed. You pay some equity for the development fee out of your own pocket that's non-reimbursable. If this reimbursable was 100%, this would be zero. And then you compute a second equity cash flow. Instead of making it all messy, and you might say this is already too messy. Almost in these kind of things, almost any time you add one single equation, they should almost be laid out item by item by item, because later you're going to make mistakes and get confusing. This is the amount you actually pay out. And you go over here and you can say, no, the amount, a real cash on cash development fee. If we're paying this development fee and we're getting it back, we haven't really paid it out. This equity IRR on a cash basis, the equity IRR on a cash basis, well, that shouldn't be affected by, or we shouldn't pretend we're paying this when we're really not paying it. We're getting it back to ourselves. So if we want to compute this pure cash equity IRR, that's it. But the interesting thing here really about this whole business is that we need a cash equity IRR. In this case, if we believe our development fee, which I think you should believe when you do it, we need this kind of cash IRR to justify all of our economic costs and our probabilities and all the problems we have in the development phase of our analysis. So finally, if we let's reduce our development fee. Okay, let's say it's only 3%, and then we can kind of look at now. Then because we're getting it reimbursed, our cash on cash IRR didn't change, and we can see what happens to our economic IRR actually went down, our cash IRR went up. And I hope you just understand these little concepts, and you'll probably very rarely compute them both, or if you do, you'll label them probably something else. And if we can get all of our development fee funded, then it's pushing up the thing. Okay, I had just committed a crime just now. I had tried it. There was clearly an error in the way I did this, and the cash IRR should be going down. I'm looking at the cash IRR at the top of the page, and if you finance less of the development fee, the cash IRR, equity IRR, should be going down because you get less. It's effectively changing your gearing, okay? And it was going the other way. And the mistake I had made, and I'll end the video now because I think I've gone through these points enough. The mistake I had made was that when I put the development fee received from the bank, we've got to add the development fee we paid as our own equity, and also add back the development fee we paid to the bank. So that's or we subtract it it gives us money, so we have to pay less out. So when we go to this last kind of item, this total development fee essentially should be deducted from this last item. So those are some tricky theoretical and practical issues, and it's time to stop the video.